Good morning. Just morning. I'm going to clear up a few things because there's a lot been going on and a lot of lies from politicians. And I say lies because somehow they've got the idea that if they put a law through their parliament, it's not assented to, it's only a statute and it has no value in law and it's a load of rubbish. To stop that, we have to actually take it to court and get a court to decide. The problem is we don't have any courts. Why don't we have any courts? Because they're all under seizure. Because none of them are under the Crown. None of the judges sitting in them, none of the magistrates, and none of the politicians. So what I've got in front of me is the evidence that they have to. And further, I'll refer to that nice gathering at Parliament House yesterday, because a lot of the stuff said there was not correct. And I know it isn't because I've got the law that shows it isn't. Not just I believe or I think or it's to our benefit we can have these things. No, the law is exactly that, the law. And the Constitution is the supreme law. Now first I'll refer to this piece of garbage, which I call the mucus constitution. The reason I call it the mucus constitution, because it literally is a load of rubbish. It contains the actual constitution, but all the text around it is opinions. Opinions like Ann Termy and a heap of other so-called experts calling themselves professors at university, who quite frankly don't have a clue in hell what they're talking about, or in heaven or any other place. They have no idea. And if they say they are, when they teach people the Parliament is supreme, and they talk about the supremacy of Parliament, they are actually lying. Because if you've got the Constitution and you've read it, you are lying if you say the Parliament is supreme. Because the people are the highest authority. And the Constitution is not a control on the people under any circumstances. Nor can a law of a Parliament, if it was lawful, take away the rights to free speech or anything else. You have no control. Comprehend that. By forcing it, you are committing treason and fraud on the people. The reason I'm moving this is because I need to put some books away as I go through them. This book says the annotated Constitution of the Australian Commonwealth, as a result of the 1988 Constitutional Convention held by political parties. Hang on. If it's a constitution of the people, where's our input? We didn't have it. And it says, revised edition, Quick and Garrett. Well, you know, Dr. John Quick died about 1934. Sir Robert Garran died about 1957. So unless you had a time machine, it's not authorised at all. You're lying again. Nexus, Lexus, Butterworth, who cares who produced it? It's actually produced in China. Why? Why is it produced in China? If it's our Constitution. They only have to change one letter in some places to take away our ownership or rights or anything else. But you give it to China. Why would you? Because you're thick. There's no other reason, you're thick. Or too dumb to realise what the possibilities are. So then it comes to this one. And I'll refer to this one as I go because this is the one has 9 clauses. The Constitution, same as the green one, but it has the interpretation according to the people who put it together. Now, referendums, we have not had one lawful referendum since Federation because we've never had a lawful federal parliament. I've explained it, and you people don't want to listen, that's fine. I'll still keep explaining it. Aboriginals in the Constitution, yes, I'll get to that in a minute. At Parliament House, Rod Culleton referred to 1893 Transfer of Land Act. Well, sorry, Rod. As I told you before, and you failed to listen, and you went out in the public and put it, so I'm going out in the public and telling you you're wrong. 1893 Transfer of Land Act, Constitution Alteration Act, 1899, and the Police Act, 1892, were removed on the 9th of July 1900 on the proclamation of the Constitution. Was it proclaimed then? Well, It's here, and it says it was. So I got it right. Now, did the Constitution get it right when I said it doesn't exist? You Transfer of Land Act. Well, I refer you to Section 51, subsection 38, where it explains the provisions of Clause 7 of the Constitution and its effect on the Constitution and all the acts made prior to Federation. It says there were only 7 legislative areas exercisable by the Australasian Council and even less by the colonies, and all 7 are contained in Section 51 of the Constitution. Well, there's nothing to do with our land. Simply because the land was sold from the Crown in British law is God, under the authority of the monarch, to the people in fee simple. And it's alienated from the Crown. The Crown still does not retain any ownership. That is a Mark McGowan, Labor Party, state and federal and every other state lie. The Crown has no authority over the land. It uses Australia as one of its realms. So they say they own it as a realm, as a territory of England. Until otherwise proven, it remains that. Now, the Transfer of Land Act, you can pass whatever acts you like. We can ignore them because you have no authority over our land inside the boundary. Well, look at that. Clause 8 of the Constitution says when the colonies become states, the Boundaries Act no longer applies. Well, how come we've got electoral acts, electoral boundaries? We don't. They're in the state constitution, but under 106, the states are allowed to retain their constitutions subject to the Commonwealth Constitution. So the boundaries no longer exist, not for land or anything else. I made up my mind I'm not going to get into great detail in relation to what you call a meeting at the thing, and I want to thank Western Australians for bothering to turn up. Because even though some of the things said weren't accurate, and I'm not going to attack the people who made them, just say where they're wrong, and they are, there's no parliament sitting in our building. There's none. They don't exist. I have the evidence here, and I'll come to that in a minute. Now, I watched yes vote and no vote. Anthony McAvoy was the commentator. The first speaker was Craig Calvin, a lawyer, who went into great detail to tell us he wasn't blowing his own whistle and promoting himself, and then did. I didn't worry about that because that's a lawyer, they tend to do that. His last statement was, Aboriginals have been here 60,000 years. Lie. Outright lie. Unless you've got documents or some evidence to prove otherwise, you've got nothing. Scientists have not proved it. Carbon dating is nonsense, and you know it. If you've done any research, I don't care what you say, it's a lie. You repeated a lie. I'm not calling you a liar, you repeated a lie. And your yes vote has no substance whatsoever, because Aboriginals have always been in constitutions. And I have the evidence in front of me, proves it. Not this one, because it's in every state constitution, and they're letters patents. Can't be changed, can't be altered, can't be touched without permission of the monarch. Letters patents can't. So anything to the contrary is a lie. Now, Shireen Morris, you made a statement which is an outright lie. Obviously taught to you at university because you're a constitutional lawyer. Well, throw that bit in the bin because you're not. Until you go back and read our constitution with the interpretation by the people who wrote it, who are Australians, you're talking nonsense. I understand you said you're an immigrant, fine, but that does not excuse your inability to comprehend the Constitution and then turn around and say you're a constitutional lawyer. There is no supremacy of Parliament. Do you get that through your head? Because our Constitution says the Parliament is not supreme, and the very essence of federation is that must not be so. The Parliament, like everybody else, is subject to the law and must abide by it. The Parliament is subservient to the people. The Constitution also says neither the federal nor the state parliament are sovereign bodies. They're legislatures with limited authority. And if they attempt to pass a law in excess of that authority, the law is annulled and affords no obedience. Aboriginal Heritage Act, Land Act, all these acts you're passing, the yes vote, no vote, who cares? Because you cannot have a referendum till you have lawful state parliaments whose representatives create a federal parliament, and you don't have it. I've explained before, and it's law. You must have 6 states sitting under original constitutions, which lawfully constitutes them, and none of them are now, to create the federal parliament. You don't have it. So where are you going to get this referendum from? Then Warren Mundine, you, Shireen, decided to try and attack his credibility, but your credibility was out the door and down the toilet when you recognised the supremacy of Parliament. Because you're the one talking, you have to check whether it's authentic. Even if you don't like the Red Constitution, you should have read it. You should read it. Page 676, the last 2 lines on that page and the next 2 on the next page. Clearly states, page 791, clearly states. And yet you went ahead and did it without checking it. So, Shireen, you're only half a lawyer. You might have studied law. I don't know, but the laws you've studied have no credence anyway. None of it. Till every state puts their constitutions back in place, there's no state laws. And there's no representatives of the 6 states, which is required to create the federal parliament. You should have known that too. Why didn't you? I learned that I'm not a lawyer, I don't have to be. You do have to know it. And if, God forbid, you ever end up sitting in our court with your attitude, the Parliament is supreme, the supremacy of the Parliament, as you said, no. And as for Jacinta Price, the only thing I've got against you is you're a member of a political party, but don't worry about that because there's no such territory as the Northern Territory until the people of South Australia vote under the provisions of 123 of the Constitution to separate the northern part of South Australia from it to create the Northern Territory. It can be done lawfully, hasn't been done lawfully. Now, it then requires a referendum under 128. The Constitution says so. It hasn't been done. ACT is in the same boat. Canberra exists, the ACT does not. Doesn't. Are we clear on that? Now, Jacinta, keep doing the job you're doing. You're doing a good job standing up for your people. Go for it. Warren Mundine, you're doing a good job. I don't necessarily, believe a lot of what you're saying. Do I agree? I agree with a heap of it. But one of the things was said that Aboriginals were never asked. How can they ask them? Most of them knew very little about the English language. They certainly couldn't read and write it. But provisions were made by Queen Victoria so that would change. And you need to understand that. Provisions were made for those people in the state constitutions. And I'll read it to you in a minute so you're very clear that Aboriginals are in the Constitution by way of the state constitutions. Are they in the federal one? Yeah. Whereas the people. Aboriginals are people, aren't they? To me they are. I know lots of them. Hundreds of them, in fact. They're all people. The colour of the skin doesn't make a person or a people, as you refer. They are Australians. Whereas the people is everybody inside the borders of this country. Black, white, brindle, yellow. But there's no black people here. Not one black person. Brown, yes. Black, no. Why would you call them black? Africa, some of them are shiny black. Some of the people who came here, the Afghans, driving camels, they were shiny black. And we have some now, from Sudan and that, they're shiny black. They are black. But in our constitution, we don't have black people. We have brown people. We have white people. We had Chinese here, diving for pearls around Broome and other places. So we have those, and when they were here, if they were naturalised, have to be naturalised. You don't become a citizen of the Australian government. Constitution's clear. You come in here, you're naturalised. You become a subject of the reigning monarch. By understanding and comprehending the Constitution, understanding and comprehending English. When Gough Whitlam in 1973 changed the Immigration Act and then backdated it in 1948, he didn't do anyone any service except his socialist communist political party nonsense, because that's all it is. Has no authority. None. No authority whatsoever. And anybody who says white people are racist against black people, one, is colourblind because they're brown, and two, they worship Jesus, and he more than likely was olive skinned to brown. More than likely, because where he came from. You talk absolute nonsense. I've been called racist, and yet my wife is browner than half you people claiming to be Aboriginal. She is. So what? What's the colour of her skin? What it is the colour of your heart. It's where your heart is. You don't fall in love with somebody's looks because a few short years is gone. You fall in love with their personality. That comes from their heart, from their spirit. And that's what you fall in love with. So if you want to go down that road, don't bother. It's nonsense. So that's all I want to say on that. Now, so you're clear on a few things, because a lot of lies are going around. I looked up the state constitution. Now, this was proclaimed and gazetted. This is the Commonwealth one. It's the copy direct from the people of this country who put the constitution together, subject to the interpretation of this. So we'll get this one out of the way because it takes up a bit of room. And we'll go to this one. This one says, an act to constitute the Commonwealth of Australia, 9th of July 1900. Why is it an act? It's an enabling act for us to put a constitution in place. Enabling act. Understanding law. If a country claims to own this country, whether you like it or not, England claims to and has taken that position. We had to put a constitution together because we wanted one. We wanted to federate. Have our own entity, slightly different from England, but still under the protection of the Crown. So we did that. We put it together. It was taken to England. Queen Victoria got it, added 9 clauses, added a couple of sections guaranteeing us direct access to the Privy Council, and issues letters patents for the office of governor, instructions to the governor, as the superior person in the parliaments of the states, the governor of the states. No one else, not the parliament, the governor of the states. So when the parliament claims to be supreme and sovereign, it's not. It's just a pack of liars run by political parties, and in fact they are foreign agent government entities registered with Foreign Agent Registration Act of America and trading in here with ABN numbers as private businesses. Joe Blow trading as. Joe Blow just happens to be the political parties and all those donkeys. And they have no rights. Our Constitution, which is this one, came back and we, by vote, put it in place. Jacinda said, I think it was Jacinda, said that Aboriginals weren't asked. Well, the Aboriginals couldn't comprehend. They couldn't speak English. They couldn't write English. They couldn't read English. So Queen Victoria saw the problem and answered it in this act. An act to confer a constitution on Western Australia and to grant a civil list to Her Majesty, reserved the 29th of April 1989, Royal Assent proclaimed 21st of October 1890, this one. And it was cemented in place in this form, original form, on the 29th of October 1900. Now, under the Statute of Monopolies, but under imperial law, the Colonial Laws Validity Act, no colony can change an act of the British Parliament. If there was an authority granted in here, it was sealed when this became a letters patent. You cannot change a letters patent without first going to the source. Now, what I did this morning is I went through and documented a lot of things, because this says every member of the Legislative Assembly and Legislative Council has to swear the oath of allegiance, and that is section 22 of the original Constitution, which is a letters patent. Now, when you look at section 22 in here, it's very enlightened to find out the problems we're having with our thing. You repealed, or section 22, no member of the Legislative Council or Legislative Assembly shall sit or vote therein until he has taken and subscribed before the Governor or some person authorised by the Governor in that behalf an oath or affirmation of allegiance in the form set in Schedule E to this Constitution. Well, Schedule E to this one is the one with 32 sections missing. The interesting thing is, when you look up this one, we've got Schedule A, B, C. Oh, no Schedule E. It was never there. It was never there. Fraud by the Parliament of Western Australia at Federation when they put this one in place with 32 sections missing. They added the oath as a schedule to this Constitution. So they added to a Constitution an Act of the British Parliament. What does it say in our Constitution, page 701 to 703? I didn't actually lay out the exact position, but it says, even if the Colonial Laws Validity Act had never been enacted, it was beyond the legislative authority of any colony to change an Act of the British Parliament, and we're still a colony. Clause 8 says when the colonies become states, the Boundaries Act no longer applies. So all the boundaries, electoral boundaries in this, and in this one even, are removed. However, when the Commonwealth is established, it's established as a self-governing colony of England, and the Boundaries Act then applies. Now, the oath that's in here is binding. Some people have said, oh, you've got to swear the oath to Queen Victoria. No, nonsense. It's because it says at the end of the oath or oath of affirmation, and whensoever the demise of her present Majesty, whom may God long preserve, or of any of her successors shall be notified by the Governor to the said Council and Assembly respectively, the members of the said Council and Assembly shall, before they be permitted to sit and vote therein, take and subscribe the like oath or affirmation of allegiance to the successors for the time being to the Crown. That's interesting. So they have to. So that just goes to the next monarch. Now, as I said, I've got to go through this because I put this out for a reason. Now, Section 70, there shall be payable to Her Majesty in every year, out of the consolidated revenue, the sum of £5,000 mentioned in Schedule C to this Act, to be appropriated to the welfare of the Aboriginal natives. Aboriginal natives, because we're natives, white natives. and expended in providing them with food and clothing when they would otherwise be destitute, in promoting the education of Aboriginal children, including half-castes, and in assisting generally to promote the preservation and well-being of the Aboriginals. The said annual sum shall be issued to the Aboriginals Protection Board by the Treasurer on warrants under the hand of the Governor, not by any Parliament. So the Parliament never had any control, ever. And may be expended by the said board at their discretion under the sole control of the Governor. Anything in the Aboriginal Protection Act 1886 to the contrary notwithstanding, provided always that if and when the gross revenue of the colony shall exceed £500,000 in any financial year, an amount equal to 1 per centum on such gross revenue shall, for the purpose of this section, be substituted for the said sum of £5,000 in and for the financial year next ensuing, in that way increasing the amount of money. If in any year the whole of the said annual sum shall not be expended, and the unexpected balance thereof shall be retained by the said board and expended in the manner and for the purposes aforesaid in any subsequent year. In other words, every way possible Queen Victoria actually allowed for the Aboriginal people, Aboriginal natives. The reason I say Aboriginal natives, because I'm not an Aboriginal, but I am a native. So is anybody born in this country. Pick up your dictionary and have a look. And then you'll find that out. So nonsense has to stop. And this it just has to be cleared up, because there's so many lies and so much deceit going on, and the only ones suffering are Aboriginal people, and they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be, because it's here again. 75. For the purpose of this Act, Her Majesty means when not repugnant to the concept, Her Majesty, hers, and successor. Governor means the person for the time being lawfully administering the government of Western Australia, or the lawfully appointed deputy of such person. The Governing Council means the Governor acting with the advice of the Executive Council. Treasurer means the Treasurer of the colony for the time being. Aboriginal Protection Board means the board established under the Aboriginal Protection Act 1886, or any board with similar functions established in its place under any act adding to, amending, or substituted for the said act. Person includes a corporation or associates or persons. Month means calendar month. Now the big problem, the foregoing provisions of this Act shall have no force or effect until so much and such parts of the following Acts of the Parliament of the United Kingdom, that is to say, 13th and 14th Victoria, Chapter 59. So it's an Act of the British Parliament that this is put in here with, entitled An Act for the Better Government of Her Majesty's Australian Colonies. So every colony has this embedded in their constitution. 5th and 6th Victoria, Chapter 76, instituted an Act for the Better Government of New South Wales. And look at that, Van Diemen's Land. As I said, we were called Van Diemen's Land, not all these other weird names you people want to put to them. 7th and 8th Victoria, Chapter 74, instituted an Act to explain and amend the Act for the Government of New South Wales and Van Diemen's Land, as severally relate to the colony of Western Australia and are repugnant to this Act, shall have been repealed. So this Act shall be proclaimed in Western Australia by the Governor within 3 months after he shall have received official information of the royal assent thereto, and shall commence and accept, as provided in Section 42, take effect from the date to such proclamation. This Act shall be cited for all purposes as the Constitution Act 1889. and that's where Schedule A comes in. Now, I put this up for a reason. The ministerial Schedule B refers to the Governor, £4,000, Private Secretary, $300, Clerk of the Executive Council, $250, Chief Justice, $1,200, Pusian Judge, $900, 5 ministerial salaries, £8,200. These are in pounds. The total of £9,850. Promoting the welfare of Aboriginal natives, £5,000 at the start of this, to go up to £8,000 and so on as the needs may be. That's why when Aboriginal Australians go to Social Security, you are now paid by agreement by the Federal Parliament. So you get more than that sum. It was tried a few years ago to get all the money that should have been given to the Aboriginal by the states and never was. Now, I'm not arguing any of that because you actually got all the money, plus heaps more. Now, what my problem is with this is we're all humans. We're one race. We come from different places. We're multicultural according to politicians. Multicultural is the standing of where all the people come from. It does not determine where or the position of this country in relation to people in it. When you read excuse me, immigration and immigration, it literally refers to people who come into this country for obvious reasons. Immigration is to name the people who come throughout the British Empire to this country. They emigrate. And with so much time, as laid out in the Constitution, they can sit in our Parliament. They can be voted in, as long as they can comply with the conditions of this Constitution. They don't have to swear the oath of allegiance. They're already subjects of Her Majesty. That's what the oath is for the colonies to become subjects of Her Majesty. However, to take any position in the government, they have to take the oath, the one contained in the state constitution, not Schedule E, which was removed with the Oaths, Affidavits and Statutory Declarations Act. That was an act of treason. You have no authority to touch that. That's a letters patent. You cannot alter it or change it or any way interfere with it. You say you can, you're a liar. No matter what you call yourself, you're a liar if you say you can. And you're not the highest authority in this state. The governor is and must be obeyed. That's in the letters patent. This little document. Letters patent passed under the Great Seal of the United Kingdom, constituting the office of Governor of the State of Western Australia and its dependencies in the Commonwealth of Australia, dated the 29th of October 1900. Victoria, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, Queen, Defender of the Faith, Empress of India, to all to whom these presents shall come greeting. And that's this. That's a lawful document. And if the governor doesn't comply with that, which he doesn't, our governor is actually a murderer. By insinuating inducements or threats, somebody has taken one of your injections and has passed away, you've killed him. That's murder. You had a duty to make sure it was safe, never did. You had no right to become a minister in the Parliament when you were all police are under the direct control of the governor, no one else. That's imperial law. You don't get to change that or alter it or any way interfere with it. Wake up to the fact we got liars, thieves and traitors, but we do not have one lawful politician sitting in our Parliament. Wake up to the fact, all you people who finance political parties, whatever those political parties do, you're guilty of it because you must be sure that they're established lawfully and you're not. And you've never done it. Now, I've got a lot of friends, unfortunately, that are in that position. Sorry. Where were you when I got arrested for nothing on a warrant that didn't exist? Where were you? Majorities couldn't care. I should have not said nothing. No, I was given the job by my dad to do what I'm doing, and I am going to do it, and you are going to be brought down. It is not up to me whether you stand trial. It's not up to me whether you go to jail. But it is up to the people. It is up to them through their constitution whether you stand trial for the criminal actions you are committing. I filed into this court in December. When I went back to the district court, the document stated clearly, I'm revealing criminal offences committed by the Parliament of Western Australia. An act which grants to the police the right, they're not police, they're public officers claiming to be police, the right to hold us down while some clown injects a substance in us against our will. If we pass away, get injured or anything else, that's murder. So when the Parliament passed that, they conspired to commit murder under Section 42 of the Commonwealth Crimes Act, 1914. You conspired to commit murder. Anybody who goes along with it is accepting the fact they can murder you. Now it looks like Queensland's come up with a new vaccine for COVID. Well,
Moderna.
They have not isolated the virus according to the Freedom of Information things we submitted. So how do they know it kills coronavirus? That's McVerna or whatever they call themselves. Who cares? And it actually vaccinates you against influenza. Well, how come it's not all over the world that Australia has found a vaccine or a cure for influenza? And the other one, God knows what that is, it's got a couple of letters there that supposedly have a new virus. What happened to the monkey virus? Did that just disappear? Or maybe the monkey virus came from the mailman in this country. It takes so long to get your mail. It must come by monkeys swinging on trees or running across the paddock when there's no trees. Wake up, come on. You people are not that thick. Stand up and tell them this is our country. You have no rights. You have none. I did an interview last week and one of the questions come up, and it was actually a statement, not a question, in the comment section where the gentleman, being part Aboriginal, I looked at all these other comments smack on, but he come up and he said, 40,000 years ago, we invited, or Egyptians came here. Well, that sounds crap. Because number one, this book, King James Bible, which is common law of this country, it states quite clearly, when you read the book of Daniel, there's a mathematical, whatever you call it, which allows you to calculate how long this world has been in existence. Oh, but the scientists, I don't care what scientists say. I don't care, oh, look, this is 50,000 or 100,000. I've heard it all before. It's lies. Absolute lies. The record of creation of the world is in here, till you prove otherwise. The record of the mathematical system, which tells you how long this world has been here, is the truth, until you prove it's incorrect. And you can't. You cannot. What I'm saying is an answer to these people who think we should pay rent. Well, Thomas Mayer, you just go away. You're a Filipino. You're born there. That's your nationality. Your mother was half Filipino, half Jew. Your father was Filipino. You're a Filipino. If you come here, you're naturalised. You're now an Australian. You're a native of here if you were born here, but you weren't born here. So now, you're naturalised. Your communist attitude is a cult. Socialism is a cult designed to bring down our country. Well, go back to immigration. Follow our customs and beliefs, assimilate into our society. Bye-bye, Thomas. Go back to the Philippines and see if you can open your mouth there and try and take over that place. I dare say maybe a couple of days, maybe a week, but you might have a an extra eye in your head. They won't tolerate your crap. And why we do, God knows. I'm not suggesting someone shoots him. That would be nasty and I'd get in more trouble for nothing. The fact of the matter is, Thomas, if you don't like this country, pack your bags and get the hell out of here. Go back to the Philippines. Well, actually, where is it? Borneo Island or an island off Borneo?
Borneo and half Jews.
That's where you come from. You can lie all you like, but your papers show the truth. Now, unions, they're a cult. Sure, they did a lot of good, but when they associated themselves with the Labour Party, a socialist, dictatorial bunch of half-wits, and look who runs them. Who started the Labour Party in the late 1800s? The Fabian Society. Who was before the French Revolution? Who created it? They did. Who financed and set up the Bolsheviks in Russia? Fabian Society. Their whole outlook is socialism worldwide, which doesn't work. Communism worldwide doesn't work. How many millions did Mao kill in China to force the Chinese people and teach the Chinese people the dictatorial crap you call communism, which doesn't help anybody except a few elites up the top. They've got a lot of money. Look at the president of China now. How much money has he got? Millions. Millions. For what? Communism, isn't that sharing everything? Socialism, isn't that sharing everything? Nah. Time you woke up. Socialism and communism will never work because you take away people's incentive to work. They won't work. They won't. It's hard enough to get them to work now when you can get money. You sit back, you do nothing. I know a family. The grandmother does nothing. She's too busy looking after the kids. One kid's got a problem, needs to go and be trained, won't do it. The daughter had a baby. She sits down, oh, I've got a bad back, got this, got that, got the other. I've seen her walk upstairs. It's a lie. But she gets a pension. She has a daughter who's never been to school, hasn't been to school enough to get an education, way overweight, just like her mother, eats way too much junk food, like her mother, and is on NDIS. What is wrong with this country where you can lie, cheat and steal your way through life and never have to work? What's wrong? I worked all my life. Sometimes when I was in the police force I had 2 other jobs. 3 sometimes. I paid tax. I'm 10 years into wanting to get a pension and finally considering it now because I need it. But, you know, the thing is, when you look at everything else, there's that many bludgers on the system, and they're not Aboriginals. They're not. I know lots of Aboriginals. One started a traffic company here, or 3 of them did, and they're employing that many people, and they own everything they got. Never had government handouts. So you're capable of it. You look at Jacinta. Where did she get? She went through university, schools, everything, and got where she wanted to get. Albert Namatjira was one of the most brilliant painters ever to live in this country. I had the pleasure of meeting him when I was 8 years old. He showed our class in Darlington Primary School how to mix colours so that they weren't, you couldn't see through them. They actually, with a little bit of different colours, you could produce leaves on trees or a picture of a tree and you could actually see the leaves on it. He taught us that. I mean, we didn't take it very far because we were too young. But he's such a brilliant painter. We have a friend who's a brilliant painter now. She's absolutely brilliant. Lives in Carnarvon. She knows who she is, and she'll probably watch this and laugh and tell me off for putting her on here, so I'm not going to put her name on here. But I've looked at her art. It's brilliant. I grew up with the Mondays when I was a kid. I know some of the Mondays in Middle Swan. They gave me Mondays. They gave me an original painting of a barramundi. It's brilliant. And they gave it to me for helping them do some paperwork. I didn't want it, but they insisted I have it. I won't insult them. I've got it. I looked after it. I still have it. Why wouldn't I? We need to take the Aboriginal people who are native to this country before us. They're not the original inhabitants. They were Egyptians. After that was Nordic races, including Celts and Vikings, and from there came the original name of this country. Beulah land. Like it or lump it, you go to the Negritos and start poking your nose around, you get to know them, and you get to know what this country was called. Beulah land. Why? Because the Celts brought the name here. The Celts did. What was their religion then? Christian. Not Catholic, Christian. Now, you can believe me or not, go do your own research. I put the name up, I had an extra L, but it's B-E-U-L-A-H, Beulah. And look at it. And that's this country. Now, we had pyramids here. 7. If you hunt now, you can find the remnants of some, but Gympie in New South Wales has got 2. Actually, somebody said they put a highway through. I don't know. I have actually Googled and seen the actual pyramids. They weren't built in a day. They were built over a long period of time. Now, if you Aboriginal people, as you claim, have been here 40,000 years or 60,000 years.
60 million.
Or 60, whatever time you want to put on it. I don't believe it. And if you did, how have you gone from watching those things being built, the pyramids, and regressed back to living in bark huts and things like that? How did you do it? Or why did you do it? No. I know too many Aboriginals who have got brilliant minds. One went right to the top of the teaching profession. She was brilliant. I knew a lovely lady. I know some of them now. Quite a few of them that are in there. Some of them are models, and they're brilliant. They're beautiful and they're brilliant. You look at Jacinta and look at her facial expressions. She's beautiful. She's got a good mind. She's got a husband. And so, no, I'm not interested in it. I have a beautiful wife too. We had 9 years anniversary yesterday. I'm not promoting that. What I'm promoting, you go to Broome and you look at the beautiful women in the Kimberley modelling thing, or whatever they call it, beauty pageants, and see the women. They're not only beautiful looking, they're brilliant in their head and everything else. These are normal, everyday people. It's time we treated them that way. It's time we stop trying to get something that we never worked for, any of us, because we all are native to this country. We were born here. The ones that weren't and came in and are naturalised, they have the same rights. No parliament was ever granted a right over land or the right to tax it. And there's that many cases been through the High Court which overturned that. We don't have a lawful federal parliament. We don't have lawful state parliaments until every state parliament puts the original constitution back in place. Western Australia doesn't even exist as a lawfully constituted state. Under January the 1st, 2004, what came into play then, under the Acts Amendment Repeals Court and Legal Practice Act, was an unlawful entity known as state. An entity unknown to the Constitution, therefore treason and invalid. You can't change that. So have a good think, have a good listen, look up the acts I've shown you, and think about the truth, because it's the truth that brings out justice for everybody, no matter what the colour. We need to live in this country united as one people. The Constitution says, whereas the people. It should read, whereas the people, no matter what colour, what race or where you come from, as long as you assimilate, follow our customs and beliefs, you're an Australian. That's what the Constitution says. We need to promote it. Stop going to the government and saying, oh, I'll remove this from an act. Throw the act in the bin, get the hell out of our parliament, sit there lawfully under the lawful state constitution, or pack up and get out. Most of you got citizenship to another country anyway. You throw half of them out of parliament because of it, and you've got it. You've got it. Howard had a skull cap. Yeah, where was his allegiance? To Israel? That's fine, that's his idea. But he couldn't sit in our parliament according to what they did. Bob Hawke was the same. How many lawyers are in our parliament when our constitution said they should never be there? Well, once the the people of this country, if lawyers ever get control of our courts and parliament? Have they? Yes. Should they be there? No. Time to wake up, people. This country belongs to we the people. No one else. Not we the parliament, not we the greedies, not we claiming to have all these extra rights.
And
There's
God
only-
owns everything.
Yeah, well, God is the crown. He owns the whole world. He created it. You don't believe that? That's fine. You're allowed to believe what you like. Now, I'll tell you something else. And you better be aware of it. We the people own this country. We the people can make it great. We the people can stop behaving the way we are before the WHO, United Nations and One World System walks in and takes everything off us, and we the people are left with nothing, because we the people are too stupid, too argumentative and too ignorant to stand up and say, no, you're not having it. Time to wake up. No one is privileged in this country, and for the record, Thomas, I hope you listen, there is not all these sovereign nations in this country. There is only one sovereign nation on record in this country, and it's created by this. Anything else doesn't exist. Otherwise, show me the documents that show it. And don't come out with a book written by that idiot saying Aboriginals developed bread. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. This says that it's not true. It's not. It was around in Jesus' time. It was all the way back to the things. The Dead Sea Scrolls. That's a complete history that put this together. So there's the evidence. The Constitution is taken from this. The rights conferred by the Constitution are absolute, because we are sovereign and supreme. The Constitution is the restraints on the so-called Parliament, because they're not a government. And the governor constitutes and executes the authority of the Crown to make sure we have a protection against the thieves sitting in our Parliament now. Time for a lawful governor. Time for lawful people in this country, which is every single one of you, to stand up and be counted, so, and assimilate into our society. Follow our customs and beliefs. You've got the right to stay here if you follow our customs and beliefs and assimilate. If you don't, you have the right to pack your stuff and go home. Get out. If where you came from was so good, you came here and you want to change this, no. You go back there, because we don't want to change. We want all the rights granted by our Constitution, which is absolute. The Parliament has no rights except to pass laws for us, not over us.
Amen.
Wake up to that fact, and we can all live peaceably in this country, which is what we should be doing. So have a nice day.